Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Spiritual Psychic TV and this Being Spiritual with me, your host, Ashley Robinson. It's wonderful to be back this evening, and this evening I'm really pleased and excited to say I've got two very special guests with me, Helen Rogerson and Neil Bryan. Good evening, Neil and Helen. Welcome to Being Spiritual.
Lovely to be with you again, Ashley. I look forward to it.
You couldn't get enough of it a couple of weeks ago, Helen. You've come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
You brought back the lovely Neil, whose ears were burning throughout the show a couple of weeks ago. So fantastic to have everybody joining us on Facebook and YouTube. If you want to participate in the show, and we do encourage you to do so, this is a live and interactive show, then make sure on YouTube you've logged in. If you don't have a login account, create one. They're free, or use your Gmail, your Google accounts, and participate in the live chat. Before you do that, consider sharing this stream on YouTube. Right-click arrow, and you can share it across all of your socials. For those of you joining us on Facebook, if you want to participate in the show tonight, just make sure you're watching the live stream feed, the main feed on Spiritual Psychics TV Facebook page. My Facebook page is at Ash Robinson. We'll get Helen and Neil to introduce some of their pages a bit later on. And of course, there is the SPTV fan page and the main website, sptv.uk. But tonight we're coming out live from London and the rest of the UK. It's just after 8 o'clock on the 23rd. You might be watching this on playback and thinking that's not the date and time, but if you're watching it live, it absolutely is. So really pleased to have you with us this evening. Tonight's show is going to be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it, because we're going to talk about energy, we're going to talk about intelligence, and we're going to talk about beings. And three big subjects which could have their own show, could go off in any way. We could segue into different things and dive, but we've got the advantage of having Helen with us, that, as we know, does channeled spiritual psychic art and mediumship. And what we're going to do is we're just going to see where it goes. Now, you can ask Ash anything, you can ask Helen anything, you can ask Neil Bryan anything. If you are following the subject and up the matter, we're going to try and bring in those questions. The other thing we're going to do tonight is offer some free meetings. We're going to do some psychic readings, some card readings. We'll have some channeled art and some art mediumship as well. So do stay tuned throughout, and you should all have the opportunity to do that. We're going to do a couple of hellos. If you are joining us for the first time, a special welcome to you. Why not comment now? Let us know where you're watching the show from. If you're coming back, second, third, or 100th time viewer, thank you for sticking with us, for helping build this community. Let us know too where you are watching this show from this evening. I know that Claire Colbeck on YouTube has joined us. She said good evening to Richard, Ashley, and everyone. I don't know if Neil's video has come back to life, if he's with us, otherwise he's going to do a few hellos. Okay, no problem at all. I know that we're just having a couple of technical problems. And Helen and Neil, as well as being in a relationship, are sharing the relationship with a modem and router this evening. So that always gives us a few other technical problems as the bandwidth is tested. Mary Dixie, my old circle leader, says good evening to Richard, Ashley, Helen and Neil. Lovely Mary there from Wimbledon Church. Ben Davis from Leicestershire. I know that my mum and dad are watching. My dad always comments in, and my mum always says to me, I was there too. I know you are, Mum. Thank you for watching this evening. I think my oldest son has stayed up tonight as well. When I told him what we were talking about on YouTube, he wanted to watch that. Emma Butler joins us from Fareham in Hampshire. Hello to you, Emma Butler, on YouTube this evening. Fareham. Thank you, Mr. Producer, correcting me. Fareham in Hampshire. Jeanette from Scotland and the United Kingdom. London's beautiful loft. Jeanette, good evening to you. Welcome. Hope everyone is well, she says. Karen joins us as well. Hi, Karen on YouTube. Phil Shaw. Good evening to Ash and guests. I saw Phil Shaw a couple of hours ago, actually. Okay, we are getting most of your comments. So if we don't specifically mention your name, it's not deliberate. We're not picking on you. I thought that was the Queen joining us for the first time from Spirit World, but no, it's first time Portsmouth with the Queen Elizabeth II picture. Paul Smith, good evening to you. Wouldn't that be lovely if Her Majesty suddenly beamed in from heaven? That would be great. Zenela Z. Delami from South Africa. Good evening to you, Zenel. And Siobhan Rook says, hi, Ashley, everyone. Helen, can you see these comments now as well? Did you want to say any hellos? Was it still a bit too small for you?
I can't see it. It's a bit small for me, but I'm definitely there with the love and the hellos.
It's all right. And hopefully we'll have Neil back in soon. Anne Naylor joins us. She says, good evening from the UK. Hi, Anne,
Hello,
on
hello.
Facebook.
Nice.
I'll mention the names. You can say hello.
Okay, go on.
There's these strangers, Ray and Jackie Robinson, my parents.
Hello, parents. Hello, lovely ones.
Wishing us to have a great show.
Oh, thank you.
Mary Butcher on Facebook.
Hello, Mary. Hi.
Hello, hello.
Lovely to have you with us. Oh,
Tracy. I think Neil is coming back in, folks. You might start to hear Neil's voice as well. Tracy.
Hello, yeah, sorry, I had a headphone issue.
That's all right. No problems.
I'm just staying really, really still like a ninja.
Hi, Stacey. So sorry if you've got a frozen video feed from Neil, but we are getting him live, so you should hear him now too. Neil, can you see all the comments as well?
Yes.
I'll let you do a couple of hellos then, so you can do the next one.
Is it Danielle?
Yeah.
Hi there, with a cat face. Hi there, cat face. How are you, Danielle? You okay?
I think that when you see a
Welcome.
cat face, that means she wants to say meow, or you have to meow back to her.
Meow.
Good impression.
Thank you.
Meow, Danielle. Good evening to you.
Danielle Bohan. So I've made it big now. I can actually see your full name. So my face was just pressed against the screen there.
Okay.
Glad my camera was off.
I think there's a few gremlins in the systems tonight, folks, so we're not getting all of the Facebook comments coming in. So if you're able to head over to YouTube, we are getting comments on YouTube, and we seem to be having less technical problems with that this evening, particularly if you're wanting to interact with the show and participate in the live chat or ask for readings later. Please try YouTube, as I say, few algorithm gremlins Facebook this evening. Ben Davis, love the checked coordination as well. Yep. It wasn't planned, but maybe Spirit had a plan. The pink and checkers.
I'm back. Sorry.
It's all right. I'll let you do the next hello then to Julie.
Hi, Julie Caswell. And hi, Terry. And so Julie's made a comment there. Hi, Terry and Mary.
Yeah, I think they're chatting in the sidebar now. There's
Oh,
a
I'm with you.
spiritual psychic TV community. They get together on a Friday night for a bit of a chat and a gossip.
I hear they're a wonderful bunch.
We'll know if we're really boring if they start telling everyone what they've had for dinner. That's when I know I've lost the audience. But hopefully we'll keep you this evening.
Ashley, what noise does a sunflower make?
Interesting question. I imagine.
I know it goes towards the light, doesn't it?
Yeah, as it turns to face the sun, more like oh.
And did you know if the sun isn't out, they face each other for energy? So
I
talking
did
about
know that.
energy. So there you go.
That's really nice.
Beautiful.
Love
Bit how we should
sunflowers.
be.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Something happening this end.
Karen Lee from Heavenly Sparkle. Good evening to you.
Hi, Karen.
I'll see if I can see someone for Spirit of Love. Hi there to you.
Hi, Terry.
Crystal Rodriguez on Facebook. Tina Collins, Angie White, Parish Panday, Joanne Wood says they're watching from Turkey on holiday at the moment. Good evening.
Wow.
Hopefully that's, but you're still having a great holiday, but you've come to check us out. Thanks for that. Good evening from Anne Naylor, Natalie Bentley, Angie White. Leicestershire, Ben Davis was saying. Terry said she had Singapore chicken noodles. Oh, is that a challenge already, Terry? You're already bored. I'm already losing you, and I need to get on with the show. Terry does. It's not. Yeah, it's Louise. Yeah. Thank you for that. Right, I won't be able to say hello to everybody tonight, folks. I'm having a few problems with Facebook, but we know you're there, and I'll try and pay attention to my phone and Facebook as well. But I'm not a strong multitasker. Richard is getting your comments on YouTube, so as I say, if you can head over to the YouTube stream, make sure you've subscribed over there as well, folks. Helping to build that community. I know the Facebook numbers are dropping now, so hopefully that's because you're not bored and talking about Singapore chicken noodles, but you're all heading over to YouTube. But that's good. Right. So tonight's show, folks, energy, intelligence, and beings. I said that I would start with a couple of psychic readings. So it's my birthday soon. Within the next 7 days, the first person to guess my birthday in the chat bar, I'll give a quick reading to. Richard's, yeah, is very close. He's hovering between the right answer and the wrong answer there. So on the chat bar, let's have a day or a date next week for my 40th birthday, the big 4-0. And the first person I see to put that which is very close by one.
How old did you say you would be?
I'm going to be 40.
No.
Yeah, 1982, baby. Even no one wants a reading, or I've not seen any of the answers coming. I'm not getting any. Oh, we go. Ben's guessing 27. 27 is wrong. 30's close, but wrong. Angie.
Ooh.
Claire Colbeck, 28th. Also wrong, Claire. It is the 29th, and Tina Collins is the first person I saw. 29th, yeah, 29th of September. I was a Wednesday baby, 1982. So Tina Collins, I'm going to give you a card reading, and then we're going to have a bit of a chat about energy. So Tina Collins, the card I just pulled for you is the Stranger. You see that? So this is the Stranger card. And as I draw this card for you, Tina, I want to talk not about a stranger at your door. Don't panic. I want to talk about you not seeing yourself in the mirror and you feeling like a bit of an imposter at the moment. You looking in the mirror and seeing a stranger. You're not feeling at your best. And what I'm being told is you're not able to bring all of you to each day at the moment. I've got a professional situation and I've got a work-life balance. And someone is saying we need to put a few more quid in your pocket. So there's something there about that professional link, but you're not bringing all of yourself to each day, Tina, is what I'm being told. And you don't recognize yourself. Equally, there's a little bit of the old imposter syndrome. And in that you are deserving of some success and you don't feel that you should be there. You don't feel that you deserve to be there. Albert Einstein was also someone that occasionally suffered with imposter syndrome, Tina. And as my guides with me, Bob Brunton, my predominant mediumship guide, is telling me about this and the reason that I pulled that card for you. So Tina said, yay. If you can give me any feedback that you would also understand the other things I've said, then that would be great. Now, Helen may or may not draw when we do the card and psychic readings, and we'll ask her in a minute if she's got anything to share before we start chatting about energy. She said yes, so she probably has got something to share with you in a minute. But that's not a stranger. Have a proper look. And also say there's something about you not wanting I'll be careful how I say this, Tina. You don't want to look yourself in a full length, but you don't want to see your whole body and your whole self. And this is psychological. You're not bringing all of yourself to this. It's not your true and authentic self all of the time, and therefore you're less likely to be at your best more of the time, Tina. And I want you to be able to do that more. Take a good look at yourself in the mirror. Love all of you. Tina says she would understand the imposter syndrome. Okay, keep on keeping on. You've got this, Tina, and you will bring more of you to this. You'll bring more of the authentic self to you. And the final thing that I was just hearing there from my guide, Bob, and he was just saying, Tina, don't try and learn to dance 10 minutes before the ball. Okay, and what he's saying there is don't try and cram all the preparation you need to do for this next chapter. And I feel there's an exciting chapter. In order for you to be at your best, start learning to dance now. You're saying true, you have some confidence issues. Tina, with your permission, we'll send you some love, light and healing. But look yourself in the mirror. See your beautiful self inside and out, and remind yourself that you love yourself. You stand for truth. You stand for light. You stand for hope. You are a confident lady, and just look yourself in the mirror and continue to say that. I'll give Helen an extra 30 seconds, which I didn't do.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
I saw Neil nodding as well. Neil, was there anything you wanted to add at all?
I spend my days with mostly women who are emotionally beautiful, open souls, as opposed to, most typical men. And I was just agreeing with everything you were saying there. Actually, it's mind over matter, easier said than done, I guess. But Tina, you got to start believing. You've got a wonderful community around you here. And I always say to people, take small steps. Just do something small, something that other people might not even notice, but do small things to build up that confidence. And those small steps will turn into leaps. You can do it. You can do it.
Good. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Neil. And Helen, you were
Yeah.
drawing. What have you got there?
So
Oh,
can
lovely.
you see?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Wow.
So yeah, this it's like this crow. It's interesting you're talking about truth and like universal law. That that's what the crow represents. It comes with it, holds that sacred to it. Yeah, so there's that, and it's like really listening to spirit, listening to your higher self. Like it's right on your left side, which is the side that spirit comes in. So the bird is there. It's like right by your ear. It's like listen to your truth, listen to it. So yeah, it totally ties in with all that you're saying, and then all this growth sort of coming out. Like when that happens with the strength of that.
Really nice. And Helen will take some scans of these pictures, folks. And for those of you on Facebook, I can see you're on Facebook, head over to the SPTV fan page later tonight, and I'll upload copies of these images. I'll also share it on my Instagram, maybe my TikTok, so at Ash Robinson. And that will be a place that I'll share some of these images. But Tina, if you want to give any feedback on what Neil and Helen and I said, please do in the chat bar. So because you're on Facebook and we are struggling with some of that, we won't necessarily see it, but I'll try and have a look later. But thank you for that, Helen. Lovely drawing and a nice little bit of evidence there from you, Tina. And thank you for guessing my birthday right. Now everyone knows it's the 29th of September. If anyone wants to wish me happy birthday, I've given you my social media channels. I'll be ready to receive some of that birthday love. Energy. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about energy, and I want to read a quote with a bit of an abbreviation. So very rarely on Spiritual Psychic TV will you hear people read from the Bible, but I'm going to read a brief section from the Bible, and then I'm going to add something to it. So bear with me while I give this. Right, folks. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything that was made. Now, old-fashioned Bible, translated several times into English for me to be able to read it tonight. You will all have different opinions about the Bibles. I think it's a nice collection of stories, to a certain extent verified by Roman politicians, up to 2,000 years ago. There are some nice bits and pieces in there. But what we do have, if we look through history, is history records often wrote by the victors. So anyone that kind of lost battles and wars didn't get much chance to sort of write things down. But the Bible, in many ways, does give us a look back in time. And I think that there was a time when religion and science stood very closely together. And indeed, I believe the church were in part investigating science. And there's something with that phrase that I want to add as part of introducing the next subject. So that phrase talks about that in the beginning was the Word. Now, there are lots of different reasons when you research why the word's not there. Lots of people will just say it's because the lost word. The true secrets of the biblical history were lost, or the word was known to only a chosen few. Other people may say that in an attempt to control the people, certain things and words were removed from the Bible, but they still shared some of the story because the story was so important. And perhaps as part of that element of control, there was also something about trying to make characters in history like Jesus. And I believe Jesus was around. I believe he was a great leader. But was there an attempt made at some point by the church to make people like Jesus less of a human being, more godly? Was there an attempt to make God more godly? There's a lot of language in that phrase about he. Now, in 2022, we're more educated around, prelims and how to introduce people and assumptions we make. But lots of old-fashioned language, even British law right up to the 1970s and 80s, still talks about he when they're referring to he, she, they, and everyone else. So what I want to do is I want to re-speak that phrase, but I want to add the word that I think may have been taken out of the Bible. In the beginning was energy, and energy was with God, and energy was God. Energy was in the beginning with God, all things were made through energy, and without energy was not anything made that was made. Now, the reason I want to do that is, I think that energy could have been the missing word. I also think that in my interpretation of understanding who or what was God, and I'm dedicating my first ever show on SPTV to who is God, so watch that back on ProLate. I came up with the theory based on philosophy downloaded to me from my spirit guides and friends, as well as my friend, Mr. Ralph A. Steadman, that God is the sum total of all the primal particles of an intelligent energy, life in itself, the universe. And therefore, God was almost like an umbrella term for the energy of the universe. And what I think is, when you look at that chapter in the Bible, is that religion and science were saying that, and for want of a better word, did the understanding of energy, did we insert the word God? And we talk about the energy of the universe, or the universal love of that. I think that there is certainly a chance that it was. So that's where I'm going to sort of start when we talk about energy. We obviously, at crude level, you Google what is energy. We know we can't destroy it. We know we can't create it. We know we can change it. We know that everything is made of energy, and that energy at scientific level, people talk about atoms. Neil and Helen, and atoms, I believe, was the Latin word for atom. Which was their scientific expression for cutting a piece of string in half, and then taking that half and cutting it again, and then taking that half and cutting it again. And when they got to as small as they could, they had the atom, and it was the smallest known particle of energy. Now, science went on a little bit from the invention of the word atom to obviously say, yes, atoms are very small. We think everything's made of atoms, but within atoms are particles. And within particles of energy, we know there's all these other bits of energy flying around. But what we do know is that the energy within the atom is in itself intelligent energy and can be in constant communication with other energy. So I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to give Neil the opportunity to give me his thoughts about what I just said about God and energy. You can talk about atoms if you want to give us a science lesson or anything else, and then we'll see if Helen has been drawing while we've been talking.
Helen is incredibly pleased that you chose me first. I can tell by her face. She's ecstatic.
I'm just here to draw tonight. I'm just here to, have a little draw the energy.
Do you know, Ashley, you do blow my mind. I mean, it's an interesting topic, and one of the first things I'll say about it is, regardless of where your beliefs are, energy right now is damn expensive. I know that's not what we're talking about. That was just a little side joke, but there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things within the frame of what's in the Bible. So the Bible, for me, that's dogma. I think it's the written thought, collective written thoughts and ideations of man, and it was promoted by the Roman politicians and identified as a good source material for how to live or how to adopt into the Roman Catholic Church. But at the top of all that, every time religion is used in that dogmatic fashion, it's really generally, I think, again, these are my own opinions. Feel free to agree or disagree. But I think it's just really there's somebody at the top of that food chain that's using those strong belief dogmatic words, and I'm actually reminded a lot about. It's worth looking up if you. It's a long thing. I won't read it out, but it's called the God of Spinoza, and the Spinoza was this Dutch philosopher, and Einstein. Many years later, after Spinoza, hundreds of years later, Einstein was asked on a university tour of America, does he believe in God? And he said, well, I believe in the God of Spinoza. And this is sort of a very poetic sort of write-up and philosophical viewpoint, actually, about what God is. And would God ask you to build structures to pray to him? It's things like see me in the eyes of a child or a puppet. It's a very romantic way of viewing God, which is generally in self was Spinoza's point of view. Energy in terms of where we are and who we are, I mean, that's beyond doubt, that as in there's no doubt. Sorry, there's a thing called the galactic sheet, which is science-based. That's pure energy. The sun is pure energy. Everything is pure energy, isn't it? That's science's I say this to Helen a lot, and there should be a bridging sort of thing in this moment we find ourselves in history, I believe, between what would be 10, 20 years ago, the ethereal spirituality versus modern day science. And actually science is catching up with ethereal spirituality. Yeah. So a lot of these things that we talk about, energy, energy is matter, energy is real, and energy is all around us scientifically. So that's not, and that's the same, that's coalescing that energy with the energy you feel as a psychic, the energy Helen feels as doing a channeled art. So those of you that don't know me, I look at things as objective as I can, and not challenging people's spirituality. In fact, I find ways to fundamentally believe it. Seeing is believing from my own perspective. But yeah, it's really interesting. And I'll also say about the whole God thing, and I just switch the words around God and energy, but the whole God thing, where people say, I'd always say to people that talk about God, I'd say, well, which one? There's 5,000 recognized gods on paper, so to date. And then people say, oh, you're an atheist, you don't believe in a higher power. And even if you're listening to this now and you believe in the sort of your typical God in the Christian sense, you still don't believe in the 4,999 other gods that other people believe in, so it is a dogmatic belief system. But that's not to say that even all that, I mean, the Pope's iconography around the Roman Catholic Church is all sun, because they were sun worshippers. So if you look at his garb and all his garments, it's all sun related. So they used to revere thousands of years ago the sun was Ra. Exactly. The Egyptian times called him Ra, or called it Ra, but that is in itself pure energy,
And our religious day in this country, Sun Day.
Exactly.
Day for worshipping the sun god.
Yeah.
So I think things like the Bible, whilst they're they're informative. I did a Bible search. There's a great thing you can do online. If you've got any key words, you can do a Bible search on it and just type that word in, and it'll tell you how many times. So I looked, my subject matter expertise, if you like, is narcissism. So I looked at narcissism in the Bible, and it's hundreds of times throughout the Bible. It's insane in various forms of narcissism, narcissistic. So even that's been around since the age of time. But yeah, the Bible, I think, my summary is it's dogmatic control methods. That's just my opinion. Energy, yes, energy is real. How you interpret energy, I don't find any less glee and joy in seeing the sunrise every day and learning about the astrophysics surrounding the sun. I find great, cathartic relief almost in that, to know I'm so small and there's this bigger thing out there. And that is that religion? Is that me believing a higher thing, such as the science of the sun? Either way, energy is fascinating. And how you guys, even people listening to this, tune into it, it thrills me. It's a fascinating subject. That's my point of view anyway.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing, Neil. Rich is just adding.
Yes,
Richard was just talking about the original sort of concept of religion, being considered sort of cult-like, and Helen, you were scribbling away as well. Would you like to share what you've been writing when we were talking about that? And of course, add anything you would like to the conversation.
Yeah, I don't have many words. I definitely have a lot to say on the picture though. There's a lot on there. It's really interesting, the whole God thing, the whole Bible. I think it's people finding their own way with it, and tuning in and seeing what speaks to them. But yeah, energy definitely is. I've just thought that it feels like this is like other worlds, definitely other energy coming on there, intelligence, beings. I think that's what I do. I tend to draw the other beings, other energies, more than sort of higher up, and not so much people that are passed over. It's feels like higher energy, so higher beings. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I mean, there's 8 or 9 sort of easily recognizable faces, and as I look more into the space between what is recognizable faces, I see other sort of parts, and I want to call them humanoid parts, not as like, you know, not like jigsaw, but, you know, things that I would recognize, what I can see, like eyes and things as well.
There's a really fish. Cool. There's a fish.
Yeah, there's definitely fish in there. I think it's the elements. A lot of the time when that comes in, I think it's showing the elements, the different elements. That's bringing in that wateriness.
Richard just wants you to come in a bit closer to the camera.
That way?
Yeah, he's doing some screenshots as well. So we'll share the uploads that Helen gives us on SPTV fan page later, and also at Ash Robinson Medium. All right, so that's really nice.
It's also autumn equinox, isn't it? It's like at the moment the energies, talking about energies, they talk about light, it's completely balanced, light and night.
Daniel's saying beautiful artwork, Helen.
Thank you.
And Stacia was wondering if you ever used colour in your artwork.
I do. I absolutely do, yeah. But when I'm doing it like this, when I do it for commissions for people, and if they want colour, then I do colour, yeah.
And if people want to contact you for that, that's Sacred Art?
It's Sacred Offering Art, all one word, .co.uk. They can contact me. Yeah, that's me.
Here's a card I had earlier.
Hals has got an amazing project in the works. It's called an Oracle Journey, and it's kind of it's the channeled art in the black and white form on watercolors in a pad and with paint, so people can go on their own meditative, and with meditations built into it as well, so people can go on their own meditation journey and oracle journey. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or anyone listening, you guys, for me it's like an oracle card, your own personal oracle card. But in terms of tarot, I guess, is that am I saying it right? Is it an oracle card?
Yeah, I mean, there's oracle cards, tarot cards, angel cards, you know. So all slightly different.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is more oracle, is more open. It can be anything really. You can work with in a spiritual way with anything really. So yeah, they are more like that because they're just coming. They're not like 3 of Cups, or, you know, they're not related to the tarot. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Lots of people commenting on your artwork and saying how nice it is. We had a good day from Australia, Wendy, Jane, Sarah joined us, Lizzie, Natalie, Sue Bailey said quite simply, wow, she really liked that picture. Marion O'Brien, Angie White was saying it's so interesting. Angie White was saying we're all so kind and lovely, which is lovely. Thank you, Angie. For saying that. Phil Shaw just said there, no coincidence that the US named the Apollo spacecraft missions utilizing normally condensed energy after the sun god of the same name. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think there are many aspects of, you know, paganism before Christianity in the UK and the sort of what became Britain and Saxon England that absorbed bits of that. You know, I think that when you were looking from a religious point of view to great Christianity. In fact, this is how geeky we are in my family. I met my mum and dad for lunch today, and we spoke about stuff like this. This is where the conversation goes after checking in on all the grandkids. And I was talking about sort of Christianity and the fact that, you know Jesus, we believe he was a character. But what did the Jewish community think? You know, they spoke about a Messiah coming, and they were expecting him. Did they recognise him? I've been quite ignorant. I didn't really understand a lot about Judaism. My dad, who I find a font of knowledge on this sort of stuff, spoke. Well, actually, they're still waiting for it. They don't believe necessarily it was Jesus was the one they were waiting for, and it obviously took him years for a much older sort of person, and actually it took his death. It took him to be executed by the Romans to then be recognised as someone that they wanted to indict sort of in battle. I wanted to go back to Neil's point about religion in itself, because very few of the modern spiritualist pioneers and ambassadors have given much thought and comment on religion. But when they have, they've often said it's not needed. I myself consider myself a very proud spiritualist. It's my religion. It's my way of life. But none of our spiritual ambassadors, none of our spiritualist principles, none of our spiritualist sort of chance meanings have come through and said spiritualism is the one true religion. Thank goodness all the spiritualists have got behind. They often say, you don't need this. You don't need this label. It's great that you're adopting a way of life. The SNU talk about their founding principles and the way to sort of live their life. A lot of that could be considered a science policy. What are your policy of the science? Well, we believe in mother and fatherhood. We believe in personal responsibility. The principles are very nice, but they don't necessarily have to fit within a religion. But there's almost like this human condition, isn't there, to want to group things, to want to label. And Neil, you mentioned that the statues, again, from the spirit world, I don't think if anyone come through and said, well, I'm an all-seeing, all-knowing spirit guide, you must build a statue of me. Yet there are people that are like, I want to build a statue of them, I want to draw a picture of them, I want to do this. It's almost like this human condition, to want to worship something. What do you think?
Yes. No, no, you're absolutely right. But if for me then, if with that point in hand, if there was a true spiritual element of that deity, at the moment that somebody started building statues, they really ought to have said, no, mate, you're right. It's fine. I'm just like Jesus did. Jesus didn't want fame or fortune, did he? No, I believe in the man that is Jesus, or was Jesus. I believe that was a gifted, energetically open person. Hyperbole around his stories, granted, but it was just a man, a very skilled orator, if you like, a healer. And he never had statues built. But then it's kind of cultural influences as well, in that en masse people think they need to uphold their deities and feed them whatever is energy or noise or applause. Think pop stars, that sort of culture, politics. Or even for some reason politicians want to be in that sort of bracket of fame and fortune and literal pop culture, and they want to be raised and been on the news. That's the same as building a statue back in the day. So those are the people that are seeking that. They're looking for that. They want that. They need that ego fed. They need that feedback, so they further excel in their their narcissism, which isn't very godlike, is it, when you think about it?
So much of that human condition is therefore more reasonable explanation.
The statues, they haven't. That's the thing with the human condition, is it? Statues, as you say, they're it's not necessarily to deities, or look all the furore in the last couple of years about tearing statues down because they're now deemed offensive. So they were sort of built to ordinary people, who just did either terrible barbaric things as we look back in history, or exemplary things, such as Florence Nightingale, or whoever. I don't want to say any more names because I'm definitely going to offend somebody if I say the wrong famous person that I admire. They go, oh no, he was a tyrant, and I think,
one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter.
Osama. No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke.
I'm sure some of Osama's followers would have said he was a good leader, and sadly, some of those more dangerous, evil ones did decide to follow him. Hitler was arguably a good leader for the Nazi Party, but he was a terrible, evil person.
Well, to be honest, that said, I once wrote a piece. I was just trying to actually find it, weirdly. I once wrote a piece and I finished. It was about religion and dogma and empiricism, and seeing the real. There's enough wonder in the world without having to reach for something else. I watched a bit of tarot, but I know there's more wonder in the real, objective, empirical world than having to be enthralled by the mysticism of other things. That's just my brain and how I work. But this thing I wrote, sadly, and I hope I don't offend anyone with this, but I did say at the end that more people have died in the name of Jesus than what Hitler ever killed. And sort of the comments, were stacking up on this piece and saying, oh, never really thought of it like that. Oh, that's a really good point. And then somebody went, well, Hitler wasn't that bad. I went, no, you're missing the point of that. He was terrible, but and I go, what? So he wasn't that bad compared to Jesus? So, oh no, this has gone way out of hand. Help! It's
religion has become an excuse behind major conflicts all over the world for thousands of years.
Because
Riches.
Which is just sharing some stuff with us, folks, so we'll share that.
I thought we should do that for the unvaccinated. I'm just joking. I'm unvaccinated.
We're just listening to Richard, folks, and I know you can't hear him, but he was talking about religions involving sacrifice, sacrifice of anything from goats to babies, and people doing this in what they thought was what their gods or their their ambassadors sort of wanted. I suppose certainly when you go back a long time, religion was a way of control. I don't know. We mentioned about religion and cult. Equally, there was an opportunity there for community. I think there's some fantastic bits of religion that bring people together in that sort of sense of community. And I like the way that, in the same way that the Romans were successful in their empire outreach, what they did with Christianity, or what the Roman Church did with Christianity, was they took bits of that conflict. So I didn't pay enough attention at school. And my history teacher, Mr. Shepherd, who resides in the spirit world now, will come in and say, I definitely wasn't, I can imagine him now throwing a piece of chalk actually at me. Robinson, not listening again. But one of the successful elements of the Roman Empire was the way that they didn't try and keep the people that they made part of the Roman Empire. They didn't almost allow them to have too much of their old identity, just enough to make them feel like they're part of the Roman Empire. But actually, they changed their currency, they moved people around, they changed the way they measured things, they changed the names of things. Even in the UK, I think the word is it the word Avon? That river was Roman for river, and so many of our rivers are actually just called River because it was Romans. Like, we don't know what that river's called. And they said, what's that called? River, right? River. And you think so much of that then becomes part of culture. The culture comes within the community because the leaders within that community can also be religious leaders. Sundays, Sundays was always a popular day amongst pagans. It was the day to stop and worship the sun god. Let's make that a divine day. Let's find something that works. If I ever want to get into real trouble with the Catholic side of my wife's family, I talk about the Holy Communion being an opportunity to practice cannibalism, where we all want to eat the blood and body of a human being in a sort of spirit sense on an Egyptian holiday. Doesn't go down terribly well. But it's all about interpretation. It was about what sort of started to work well. So I will bring you back in a second, Neil. But I wanted to Helen, because I know that Helen's been drawing as well, just to share some points with her. Then we'll take some comments. We'll do another reading, and I'll bring you back in a second, Neil. So Helen, what have you been up to?
Yeah, just listening to all you were saying and drawing, it's just this really gentle, it's like a bit like I said, let people Richard, is that good? Yeah. Just simplicity, like actually just keeping it simple, and what's really important, and what is supportive for you, and where are we coming from our heart? Are we listening to that truth? What are we listening to? Yeah.
I love her earrings.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Big space where we would associate the brain there. We're going to be talking about intelligence in a minute.
Yeah.
People continue to comment on your artwork. Julie Caswell brought your hand cream at the SPTV Mind Body Soul. She wants her money back. No, she said it was great. She said it was really lovely. She was endorsing the product.
Thank you.
That'd be a bad time, wouldn't it? For her to say, bought your hand cream, I had to go to A&E. Skin sounds great.
Stace Shaw was saying, never heard God mentioned by trance through guides even now I think about it. Yeah, it goes back to what we sort of channel. I mean that there's certainly an element of spirits, again, perhaps through their mediums being limited as the palette, talking about a hierarchy. again, very English and human sort of term to talk about hierarchy. And every now and then within spiritualism, you'll have someone say, "Oh yes, your guide's very important, but my guide is, slightly higher than them on a slightly different realm, or they've got more knowledge, or they've ascended as a master now." You see, they've done this so many times. So I think even within spiritualism, because we're still having a human being experience, the communicators can be limited by the moon, even in a deep trance. And actually, for those of you part of SPTV VIP Club, you know that Richard has run some experiments with different mediums in trance. And if all trance mediums were accessing exactly the same realm, or a group of guys from the same school in heaven, you'd expect all the answers to be the same. And of course, they're all different, because guides had personalities, and often when they come through in trance, it's often in a personality they had when they had a human experience. And with that personality comes their opinions, as opposed to talking from a higher realm. But when we talk about maybe more channeled or direct or just sort of divine energy, there tends to be less of a human experience personality attached to them. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Lizzie Busy was saying, great drawing, there's a calm about it. My dad,
just
Neil,
showing the top. There's a top bit. Sorry, there's a top bit. The top, like this person, just talking about gods and
Danielle said Mother Nature. She looks at the picture. She thinks about Mother Nature.
Nice, lots of earth energy.
Yeah. My dad
Beautiful.
was demonstrating, I think you call it bromance, Neil. He's talking about how much he likes you, and he likes your sense of humour, and he's enjoying the conversation. He's enjoying the show tonight.
Very kind.
We had lots of people joining us, still saying hello, and then joining us. There were some problems with the sound. Thanks for giving us the heads up, folks. I think Richard has fixed that now. People say they're loving the show. Beautiful. And there is some talk about Mayan influence with the drawing. Sue McCarthy said that she felt that perhaps there was some Mayan influence there. Ben Davis just brought up a comment, which I've
Ben's comment. That was
how do you tap into your spirit guides? Is it in the quiet within your own voice, or do you hear a different voice? That's for Ben Davis. That is asking. I think that he's asking you that question, Helen. But I might get Neil and I to answer it with a slightly different context. So, Helen, how do you tap into your spirit guides?
There has to be still. I have to find that stillness, even if around me in this world is not. And it's a lot of trust, a lot of trusting. And they tell me if I don't get it wrong. I said to that before, I get like a pain, or they're like, no, you're not fully tuned in. So you get used to feeling signs either in your body or outside, or in your mind. They'll sort of tell you. So it's just a lot of meditation. I do a lot of meditation. That's how I tune into it as well. And I help people as well to help them to connect to their spirit guides, which you do, don't you, Ashley, as well? So finding a way, and it's different for everyone, so it's finding what works
good
for
answer
you.
Though, Helen. And I know that, Neil, you don't necessarily work in the same way that Helen does, or indeed I do, but we speak about a higher purpose. Is there anything you do to where you get your inspiration? Is it all from Google or Wikipedia, or encyclopedias if you're old enough, or Encarta if you were in school in the 90s? There's one of those CDs that came with Windows 95.
What influences me? Is that
what influences you? We speak about tapping into spirit guides, but where do you tap into the universe?
Helen's looking at me. I can see it staring at me. I'm going, go on, Neil, do it. Answer this question. I don't think I do, which is I mean, I've got dial back slightly. There's only, for me, it's kind of a myth, I suppose, about this whole 10% of the brain that we use. It's much more than that in our brain, but we use considerably lots more, but there's a lot more there that we don't use, right? So just park that little bold statement for a second. For me, when I'm writing answers, everything I do comes from experience. I think I've had a charmed life, should we say? So I was a trauma medic for a couple of decades in the Air Force. I was in an abusive relationship, and I realized what abuse was from that. And I've had an interesting childhood, interesting career choices, just an interesting life, I think, in the I'm 45, and I don't all rush in and say, oh, he doesn't look it, but I am. I'm 45.
Great.
Thank you. You look amazing as well, by the way. May I say? Didn't after post surgery and everything else, you look fantastic. So I don't go in for the, like, I don't think I do anyway, go for a higher power. I mean, the words that, okay, so there's a contrived part to this, which Helen will agree with. When I've written answers for people online, and then a part of that trapping, if you like, is it will then get seen by a lot of people on Quora, where I do that. And months, weeks, sometimes a year later, I'll get a notification through the Quora app saying, oh, Joe Blogs just upvoted or commented on your answer. And then I'll see what the question was, and it won't register. And I wrote an answer for it, and then I'd click on it, and I'd read the answer. And sometimes, one time this has happened, I read this answer that came through on a thing called a Quora feed, and I was like, oh, that's a bloody good answer. Now this sounds, it's not an egotistical thing. I was just very surprised. I thought that's a really good answer. It's on point. It's like, that's what I would have said. So I clicked through it, and it was me. I'd written that answer. So I don't remember doing those, so a lot of them. So I'm like, oh, well, okay. So is that channeling? I don't know. But when I answer questions, I'm slowly leaning into a spiritual next gear, I think, in how I approach people and identify with their traumas. But most of my stuff, I think, as it stands, is just born from experience. But I'd love to hear, Ashley, what you do. You probably do sit there with a tinfoil hat on, and then it all comes streaming in like Ghostbusters, and then you've got a that's what I think a download is. Helen keeps saying, oh, you're downloading. I'm like, oh, I'm buffering. If anything, I'm buffering.
That's good, and it's a brilliant answer. You know, one of the things that I love about this platform, SPTV, is we can all give our opinions on how we think it works out. You know, I always talk about the fact that I try to deliver spiritualist philosophy based on the truth as I know it, or I've come to find it. But I often bring in people that don't necessarily agree with me, and I say, well, that doesn't mean that I'm right or I'm wrong. All of this is down to our own sort of free will and our own personal responsibility to sort of decide what works well. And I will answer it. Danielle was just saying that when we were talking about energy, she always feels drawn to people who are sad or troubled and want to help and be like a listening ear. I do feel like I absorb all the sadness and pain to ease their mind like a magnet. And Danielle said, I mean, great that you feel drawn to help those people. You know, remember that you know, in a storm and in the darkness, a lighthouse is there, and ships are sometimes attracted to the lighthouse because they think that's land. Obviously, the lighthouse is there to warn them off the rocks as well. So, you know, when someone is going through darkness, they are attracted to light, and a light worker or someone that works in unconditional love and service, you know, can be drawn to those areas that are dark because you can extinguish darkness with light. So, you know, someone was Stace was saying you sound like you could be a bit of an empath there. Always important, though, not to continue to absorb it. You know, if you're a sponge, make sure you wring it out from time to time. Give it back to the universe or a higher power or some of the many gods. Great if you can take some of that pain and sadness away from people. If you add that value, then you should continue to do that. Helen and Neil were nodding, so I will get them to quickly add. But Ben was just saying you definitely don't look 45. Neil.
Oh, bless you.
As well.
It's very kind of you. I've got a very, very expensive light next to me that sort of does the right job. It's okay.
It's all about the good light. I have cheap white tablecloths to hide my rubbish to make me look a little bit younger. That's what my life of parenting. hide my life.
Danielle, that was great. That a comment there that sort of really resonated with me. In that a lot of people I work with, they are very much like that, but they don't do it in a healthy, boundaried way. So that, I mean, just parlay into what Ashley just said as well. Really, is that it is good. It really is good to be amazing to be that rock for people, but just make sure you have some boundaries with it, because there are nefarious types out there, dark entities, if you will, narcissists as I call them, that will just leech onto your energy. They won't know they're doing it. They're doing it because you're giving them the attention to their sob stories. But you'd be sort of, unless your boundaries, you'd be ripe, really, you know, and open to all sorts of shenanigans from dubious types. But amazing. Keep doing it. That's the thing. But just learn to look after self as well within that framework.
Lovely. Thank you. Helen, anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's definitely something I've had to learn over the years, of how to support people, but stay in your strength and stay like you can do that without having to take it all onto you and then sort of being a bit overwhelmed. So yeah, I've definitely had to learn that lesson a lot.
Okay, good.
Energy vampires, yeah.
I was making a joke, wasn't I, about Mr. Shepherd, my history teacher. And I believe that a man claiming to be Mr. Shepherd, my history teacher, just popped in. He had nothing to say about Romans, but he just had a pop at me, and I felt like 11 years old again because he just spoke about cyber security. He said, "You've just given the World Wide Web your full date of birth, young man, and it's not good security." So in the event there are any trolls out there or cyber hackers, yes, I have revealed my date of birth as the 29th of September, and I mentioned 1982. Fortunately, it appears in none of my passwords as my security question, but it's a good reminder to all of us about the amount of information that we put on the World Wide Web. That is brought to you by Mr. Shepherd from Stanley Park High School, or a man claiming to be certainly as well. Phil Shaw said, yeah, thank you very much for an interesting evening. Excuse me for leaving. No worries, Phil. We shall excuse you. What we will do is we'll do another card or a reading, and we'll then
Ashley,
take some more
can I ask one question? Sorry.
Yeah, of
before
course.
we go on, can I just ask? It's a very poignant question. Can I? What are the what's the last four of your bank card and your PIN number? Sorry, just.
Yeah, you are that drunk.
Do go on.
But give me a second. I'll just go and get it. Yes, card reading. So Wimbledon Spiritualist Church is in which postcode in London? So one of the Wimbledons might get this, but it's famous. People play tennis there. You've heard this postcode on the news. So Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. See if you can give me the first two letters of the postcode for Wimbledon Spiritualist Church.
Ash, you're making people work very hard tonight.
Yeah, is it SW1? Oh no, I can't say it. Can I?
You're close. You've given the first number.
It's not SW then.
Well, the letters are correct as well. So SW1. So now someone's got a 1 to 9 chance of guessing it. Stay sure is close to SW10. Let's see if we can get the actual postcode for Wimbledon. NR17. I think that's Newham New Rome. Oh, Mary Dixie, SW19. You should know that. Mary Dixie, I will give you a quick card, but I want someone from Wimbledon. There we go. Ben Davis isn't from Wimbledon. So, Ben, I'll just draw a card for you.
Well done,
and I've drawn the card, which is the body. This is a card typically given to people that say that men online look younger than 45. I'm joking. The body card. For me, as I draw this card with you, Ben, I do want to relax you. Okay. And there's this whole thing about the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit, and the interfaces. What I want to say is, from my limited understanding about at the point of conception, when we start as a being in this experience, there is this fusion of the spiritual self, and all of these different bodies and interfaces work together to create that human being experience over the 9 months of pregnancy, and obviously we continue to grow. And what I want to say is, you're due a service. You're overdue a service, Ben, but we recognize the fact, and Spirit World recognize this side, that there is an element of you being more attuned and more aware of your spiritual self in particular, but you harnessing then this through all of those interfaces. And it's about your spirituality, your attunement to something greater than yourself, and you feeling that through all of your body, and you're using all of your traditional senses as well as your spiritual senses. And I've got you reaching high for the sky in this card. I want to give you a virtual high five. I also feel that there is some recognition due that has been unrecognized. Okay, Ben says he's overdue that service. I'll give Helen another 30 seconds. Not so much Pictionary today, but Neil, anything you wanted to say?
No, I think you said it all. But I mean, you make the connection with that card and the relaxing, overdue a service, and that you're attuned. I would say, Ben, you have very kind eyes. Would you comment on what you do for a living? Are you allowed to? Is that okay?
As long as it's not one of your security questions.
Yeah.
Helen, anything you would like to share?
Oh, well, interesting to reach for the sky. It feels like I'm rooted. It's like at the same time this beautiful tree, and then a sort of like the magic's in the center. So like there's all these like here, can people see that?
Yeah.
And I can't really see it, so yeah.
That's good.
So it feels like just keep rooting into what you're doing, really like strong foundations, and then just watch it soar, breathe up to the sky, down to the earth, like that super connection, and then it will all meet in the middle there, and the magic will happen.
Good. That sounds lovely. And Mary Dixie, just for you, Marcelo, I've got the inquiry or the inquirer, and with this card, I was picking up on the fact that you know, and for those who don't know, Mary Dixie was my circle leader. I've known her a long time. We also worked together in the same organisation. Ben Davis was saying he supervised logistics, but yeah, Mary, you have not yet answered the right question. High five comment, doing the therapy, Mel Robbins. That was from Ben as well. Mary, you've got the answers, but you haven't yet asked the right question. It's like a game show where you've got the answers and you're trying to discover the exam question. You are the inquirer. And I feel that there is something about you getting to the bottom of this, getting to the root of this. There has been something, okay, I've also got this black rat. I smell a rat. They were just saying to me, and you're not quite sure that you've got the full truth, that you've not been given all of the information. So keep asking the questions. You've got the answer already, and you now need to ask the exam question. The exam question is the one you're going to get the points on. And I want to say this is really important. This is about a personal situation with you right now. This is an element. I know that you are a current circle leader as well. And I've got an element within the circle about helping people to answer questions, but not ask questions. One of the best bits of advice you, Jill Hay, also gave me, as well as my granddad, demonstrating mediumship. Never ask questions, tell people the answers. And I've just got that confirmation from Bob that he's still trying to get me to do exactly that. Thank you, Mary. That's for you as the inquirer. Neil, Helen, anything you would like to add?
Neil, do you want to go?
I'm enthralled. I'm enthralled by all this. This is. Did you answer how you channel? Did you?
No, I did.
Did you get that?
So
no, because it's so fascinating.
I've dedicated the show to about meeting you guides, and I've always believed that all of us, when we enter this world, it's sort of going segue nicely, Neil, very well done, into our next subject around intelligence. But I've always believed that at the point of conception, when we are conceived, there is a guide within the spirit world who says, I'm now going to dedicate your entire earthly life. My sole job is to guide you. They become our sort of Jiminy Cricket, our difference between right and wrong. Whether it's thank you, Mary, for that feedback. I, as a spiritualist medium that sat in 3 different circles and been born into spiritualism, still know very, very little about what I would describe as the identity of my principal guide. So I'm aware of them. I know that they help govern some of my instinct and my intuition about things. But one of the first guides I ever got given to me was a guy called Bob Brunton. And Bob Brunton was alive during the first part of my life. He was my godfather. He was a spiritual healer, and he was a spiritual medium. He was a carpenter. He'd been a boxer. And I've always associated, because Bob was always big and strong as a young kid when you were allowed to, and it wasn't against the law. He used to sit on his lap. He used to let me drive his car when I was about five or 6 years old. I had my hands on the steering wheel. No seatbelts on or booster seats then. But I always associated him with strength and protection. And he became my obvious choice as gatekeeper. And for 15, 20 years, when I started delivering mediumship, I always assumed that when I found Bob Brunton in my mind's eye, I was switched on and I was working. It was only within the last 5 years that Bob said, I'll be honest, I don't really star in the show. You know me. It was an easy link. There's this guy called Bear, who's a Native American Indian. His last existence was in Virginia, where he was an American Indian, and he actually worked for some of the British colonies growing tobacco. He's your mediumship guide. I just come along because it's an easy interface. So it goes back to this thing of what I try and do is I try and clear everything I want to watch on Netflix from the mind's eye, the shopping list, the jobs I've got to do around the home, the reading I've promised I'm going to do with the kid, or the Lego I'm going to build with Ethan. And when I eventually get some type of clearance in that canvas or that mirror, I ask Spirit to give me something which is really vivid. And in doing that, I start to deliver my mediumship. With this show, rather than ask for the communicators to come forward as new communicators, my guide team step into that blank canvas and start inspiring me. And sometimes I stop and listen as if I'm delivering a message. Other times they just say, open your mouth and we will start talking and we will start delivering some of this in a bit more automated. And the guy I mentioned in the beginning of the show, Ralph Steadman, he was one of the last alive human beings to teach me philosophy. Used to work a lot of us out spiritual and psychic weekends. When Ralph died, he took over as unelected chairman of my executive committee, as I now call it. And my executive committee is like a group of guides that all sit around this boardroom table, and they have made this group to influence my philosophy. And at the start of this show, it all started to come back together. On the table, Ralph is chair. I've got Bear, my mediumship guide. Bob Brunton sits up there. There's a Mongolian medical man called Sai that sits there as well. There's an interesting new development of an American philosopher that I think his name is Giles. I'm finding out more about him. They all sit around this table, and they all have difference of opinions. They all argue, and eventually they come to a thing where they can all agree on what it is, and then they download that as a sort of pearls of wisdom. When I don't see the mirror or the canvas, it's a sort of Stonehenge-style meeting circle. And I go on a little journey, and I walk through the woods, and I walk down a mountain, and I go on a little bit of a journey. And once I get to Stonehenge, I invite new guides and stuff to come forward. So that in a nutshell is how I do it. I often think about a switch. So for me, because Bear is his actual full name in English interpretation was Running Bear. He tells me that's because when he was born, his dad looked out the tent to tell everybody, and he saw a bear running away. So he became Running Bear. I have no idea if that's Bear's sense of humour or whether or not that is actual truth. But in terms of identity, that's the name it gives me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
More of an observation. Questiony. Right. So the guides, right? And for anyone else listening in that's got guides, could it be, just as a theory, do any of them overlap? So if you had Bear and was did you say Bob was one of them?
Bear and Bob are my two predominant mediumship guides.
Okay, so in there, so these are people who have existed previously, right, and moved on.
Yeah.
Is that the idea? Yeah. So have any of your guides existed at the same time? The reason I ask that is because if they haven't, if they're all from different generational things, yeah, then who's to say that? So I believe in slightly different thing when it comes down to guides. I think it's more, or could be, more of a past life thing.
Yeah.
So they could be all your past lives, and your action. The only way to prove that is if any of them are actually overlapped. They're alive in real time at the same time. But then that you couldn't share a past life. But then when we talk about soul splitting, don't we? And soul
energy
mates,
being in more than one place at the same time. Julie Caswell, that's on the show, will often talk about the fact that is experience as a human being just part of the higher self experiencing something in that identity.
Sure.
Bob Brunton was alive at the same time as me, so
that's awkward.
So I certainly don't believe with him. With the others, I've asked them bits of that, and they say that they identify themselves in personalities that they last had as a human being, and that they weren't part of my experience, but they have directed me to something which I always pronounce wrong. The records, what they called, the Akashic records. Akashic records, yeah. Where I've done a bit of past life regression. And I've gone back and I've gone to experience perhaps other experiences. And what I believe is that as Ashley Robinson, the personality of the soul, is that to a certain extent, my soul had different experiences as a human being in different identities. But I've always been fascinated by this concept of that still being part of something bigger than that. Because the labels I use, like soul or spirit, it gets us onto a sort of next subject of intelligence. But we'll take a pause because Siobhan O'Rourke was saying, speaking of the universe, do you believe in manifesting as that energy? I think manifesting in positive intention is all about working with that energy in the same way healing is my short answer. But I'll ask Helen and Neil what they think, and we'll have more of a conversation around intelligence and do another free reading.
I just wanted to show you because I was doing that.
Please do.
But was it Mary?
Mary, oh yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of coming through. I was kind of coming through, and then I carried on drawing.
You need to get me to shut up earlier, Helen. I apologise.
But there's a sense of like really staying grounded. I feel like it's like literally attaching to like the bark of a tree, like it's really connecting in with trees. So some deeper tree connection, and then just like this really interesting being, and it sort of feels very much, talking about spirit guides, it feels like a guide.
Wow.
So to tune into that, but it's quite beautiful, I think.
What you don't know, Helen, is that Mary and I, two or 3 weeks ago, were talking about the sense of intelligence and energy within a tree. In the same way we talk about human beings having consciousness, we were talking about a medium that recently gave a trance demonstration for the church and communicated from the intelligence behind a living organism, a tree. And we were talking about perhaps the consciousness of a tree. So that for me was quite interesting. But,
that's
Mary
very cool.
will give us some feedback, I'm sure, in a moment about that. That's lovely, Joan. It's like she's almost kissing the tree as well, actually.
Yeah, no, it's a real connection. It's almost like she's going into the tree. It's really beautiful to communicate clearly. That makes total sense. Yeah.
Lovely,
Yeah, it's
thank
very
you.
beautiful.
What do you think of Siobhan's question?
The house.
Manifesting.
Well, we talk about, don't we, Neil, quite a lot about that. They showed it, and I think we might have talked about it before, that energy, like negative energy and positive energy, hold completely different sort of, was it a makeup of what they're made up of. Like, so they've done it with water, haven't they, where they've put negative energy into water and positive, and it's completely different, the atoms and how it's made up. So there's something massively in it. Definitely. And personally in my life, the more I have written what I want to create in my life in a positive way and put it out there, it's happened. So I don't know I don't think it's coincidence. I think it is the energy that we carry. And if we get stuck in that negative, we talk about it, don't we? The negative loop, Neil, don't we? The negative loop, how do you get out of that negative loop? So yeah, there's definitely something in that. Well, I'll let Neil talk more.
As you might have gathered, I'm not that spiritual, but the whole manifesting thing and being that energy, it depends on where as far as I know in my own life experiences, depends on where it's coming from. So I think you have to put a lot out there, and they always say don't give to receive, don't they? But your intentions have to be pure, as the guy said. And it's not just from what I've read about it and what I understand, it's not just a case of wanting something and then hoping it will happen a bit down the line. It's an exchange. Like you say, it is energy. It's an energetic exchange, I believe. I think no, I didn't. I personally, I did a bit of a PSA, but I didn't sit there 3 years ago and think, oh, it'd be really nice one day if I met someone like Helen, right? But I did. But what I did do in the meanwhile, for the 3 years or 2.5, 3 years, was keep myself to myself, put good out there, do charity work, help people where I could, realize my own traumas from childhood and brought those into the real world and tried to heal my best from them. In turn from that experiences, put it out there so others captured all that in written words and put it out there so others could join in with that healing and catharticism and hopefully expedite their own journey from my experience. But the whole time I was working towards something, I didn't really know what. And I've said to you, Helen, I said it's like, it feels like my karmic thank you sort of thing for that work. I mean, I'm sure there's more good things to come, but so is that manifesting? Well, yeah, for my skeptical brain, I have to say, I think it is. I think it's a decent energetic exchange. You could look at it through another lens and just say I got lucky, but I don't know. It feels more karmically driven, and that's sort of another type of energetic exchange in terms of not quite necessarily manifesting as such. But it's an interesting question.
Yeah,
Siobhan.
That's good. Good answers. Thank you. So going back to sort of segueing into more around intelligence, I'll just share a little bit about what I believe. So actually, I think in one of the readings a minute ago, we spoke about that point of conception, and without going too much into birds and bees, I'm talking about that point of conception. So the very start of life and an egg being fertilized. I've had evidence from the spirit world that almost at that point there are sort of like nurseries within that place we call heaven or the afterlife, where the equivalent of people who would have a nursing or a caring role sort of come together and almost hold out their hands. And at that point of the egg being fertilized, they're almost laying their hands out, and it's the intelligence and the energy from the spirit realm or the universe starting like an umbilical cord back down to the baby growing in sort of mummy's tummy, or even a test tube to that extent, that it's all starting to grow. And they try and hold that for 9 months. And actually, I've had then different bits of confirmation about what happens during failed pregnancies or aborted pregnancies or miscarriages, and about how they continue to care for what would have been, and that every child is meant to be. Some are planned, and they kind of see the direction that this is going in. Others are more spontaneous, sometimes out of love, and others sometimes out of hate or even crime. But the idea being that an intelligence or an energy that starts to build those fusion of interfaces. There is about sort of 6 months when the human baby and sort of fetus is strong enough that it develops the sort of soul. And that's when the soul almost leaves that place I call heaven to join earth. Now, they're already connected like an umbilical cord, but the soul is sort of preparing and making its way on its journey, and then they're born and they take their sort of first breaths as a sort of human being, and they continue to live. That personality that they develop, all the investment that they get in, that personality becomes what I now refer to as their soul or their spirit. And when their body as a vessel goes through that change that I call death, and the body is finished, what's left with all the interfaces as they become decoupled is the energy of the personality or the spirit. And that's the kind of language I use. So I talk about heaven as being a place where it's your life after life, but I also talk about it as a place where it's your life before life, as a sort of human being and experience. And in the plain English I've had from my own sort of guide team is that Ashley Robinson now, as the human being experience, once this vessel, this body can no longer take me, the personality of Ashley Robinson goes back to the spirit world, but I can regroup with all the other lives and experiences I've had. And actually my soul has this much wider sort of variety of decks. As a medium, I then say, when I have a communicator come through, why is it the communicator only ever communicates as the last personality that they had? And the simple answer was, when you're giving readings to clients or people in the church, they're alive, and therefore the last existence or experience that person had was the one that they would recognize. But when you talk then about other types of mediumship or channeling, you perhaps then get a soul who is less genderless. The soul is genderless. It creates a gender when it comes down to earth. But in the spirit world, when you talk about ascended masters, they can tell you about their different lives that now make up their soul, or the different experiences that make up that experience that they've had. And then obviously in a moment, we're going to talk about the other existence of beings, perhaps other experiences as energy, because of course atoms is made up of anything. So I think that past life experiences can be relevant, and people can draw on that. What my Mongolian guide Sai claims to have last exhibited an experience about 4,000 years ago, so an awful long time ago. Bear only a couple of hundred years ago. Bob, within the last sort of 30 years. But they talk about the fact that they meet in the spirit world almost like a waiting room, because they come to the same meeting place that I bring them forward. But they also talk about the fact that they've had other experiences. Now, one of the things I've never really got from Sai, for example, is you're communicating as Sai and that personality when I ask you about who you are, but what he's not ruled out, that he's actually incarnated again since Sai, or that has gone off on almost a sort of a totally different tangent. And that's when I think about, if my body was this pint glass, right, if it was the vessel, how much of the liquid leaves the spirit world, like yours, how much of the liquid leaves the spirit world to go to the earth plane for a 3D experience, and when it comes back, does it just get poured back in? But actually the glass, the beaker, is the communicator, because that's the soul, and it contains all of the experiences and all personalities. Is this not the soul? Is this beaker the universe? And we're all part of this great liquid. There's a Star Trek character called Odo, who was a changeling. and he's like a pool of liquid, and when he changes, he goes back to the great pool of life, and he's with everyone again. They're all experiencing the same thing. I think sometimes sci-fi is totally wacky. Sometimes is it that they're experiencing a little bit of philosophy as well. So I've mentioned quite a bit there. Before I get you to come in, we just say that Sarah Warman was agreeing with you, Neil. She's saying what you give out, you give back. Lovely Sarah. Pink Sarah, affectionately known in the spiritualist community, a great medium. For those of you that live anywhere near Wimbledon, Sarah and I will be doing a double demonstration of mediumship very soon. So head over to SPTV UK, make sure you get some tickets to that. Katie was saying very interesting, and thank you for the comments thus far. But I think we'll take a pause now, and Neil, you can come in off the back of what I've just said. We'll see if Hella wants to add anything in words or pictures. And folks, we are going a little bit late today, so I know we'd already finished about now, but Richard gave us special permission to overrun tonight and go on a little bit later. So as long as you're still listening, we're still broadcasting.
So with that, there's another slight twist to that, I think, as well. And that's sort of human beings being vessels for souls, perhaps en route to sort of higher dimensions, or shall we say enlightenment. And I think perhaps there was only ever so many souls, and yet somehow on the way we started to procreate. And then this created, as planned, more vessels to harbor these souls or light beings, but it couldn't stop. And so clearly many more babies were gifted to humanity. Then on the next incarnation, it was potluck whether a baby got a soul to grow for its particular lifetime to absorb and learn, all its life lessons, perpetually reincarnated until enlightenment, or whatever it is next. Or we all have souls, and yet the ones with empathy could be the old souls, and the narcissistic ones, the new souls, because they don't know any different. And so, you could say many souls. I think this plays into sort of Anunnaki beliefs in the Book of Kings. If you Google that sort of and look that up, sort of a rough, there's a sketch of what their sort of what they brought to the earth, I suppose. And so that many souls with a great many vessels being born could really equate to kind of potluck either side of the coin, and others being a literal soulless human, which we would easily translate then as demonic or evil. And then because we've all been brought up on that previous, dogma with religion and good versus evil, bad soul, blah blah blah, then it kind of just sort of amplifies it. And also, just for my own reckoning, Odo from Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
And I was thinking of Deep Space Nine today, which is interesting because it's probably, if you're out there and you're a sci-fi geek, and if you're not, I'm sorry, this might go over everybody's heads. I could feel Helen doing some sort of deep sigh. As soon as you said Odo, I was like, yeah, we're off into the sci-fi realm.
There we go, so wormholes.
If you haven't ever watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine, do watch it. It's a little bit like Star Wars, which doesn't appeal to anyone that doesn't like sci-fi, but it's the most gritty Star Trek out there, I think. Anyway, we brought that in lovely there, actually. But that's all I'd say really about that, is that the souls thing I'm really interested in, because it's it does look like good versus evil in the world, doesn't it? It does look like there's the bad actors, as they say, and then there's good people trying to catch up, and depending on which side of that boundary you are, whether or not sometimes it boils down to broad political beliefs and whatnot of who's good, who's evil. You just look at America and it's there in its obvious forms, playing out live on TV every single day. It's fascinating subject matter. Helen.
Well, I just had Avatar when you were speaking and talking about sci-fi. Has everyone seen Avatar? And then this it feels very Avatarian. That's probably not even a word, but
now,
connection.
Go with it.
Avatar, no,
It's out there. It's down on there. Oh my gosh. Can you see that? It's like, in Avatar they had those like the ponytails that connected to the animals.
Oh,
and
of course, yeah.
And the umbilical cords, yeah.
Yeah, it was like this. I'm just thinking that amazing, and that's like connecting from your heart to the world, isn't it? Connecting to things in that way, and feeling that amazing connection. It's like I feel when I go into nature. I'm just like, oh, I never feel as calm. Never felt that sort of level of calmness when I connect, and really, like, you know, with the same with the tree as well with Mary, but it's like really connecting to beings, and that we are so connected, and remembering that and feeling that. So anyway, that's probably nothing to do with what you said, but
no, I think it does link. It does link in, and you know, I mean, another great film.
No, it does.
Where do all these great people get their influence from? Is a nugget of it from something they've picked up on the meaning of the universe. And I love that tree of life, isn't it, in Avatar? And you know, how there's also protected, how it really is the tree of life, and how everything is connected.
The soul seeds, isn't it? The soul seeds that, you know, talking about souls, you know, they're the seeds of the tree of the souls that then drift.
Yeah.
And
we're not necessarily reinventing things in 2022, but I think we're going back to some of those older ways of learning. And you know, my grandfather, Derek Robinson, say one of the things he did as well as being the president of our church 40 odd years ago, he formed an organisation called Life After Death Promotions, and its mission is to share knowledge and truths, you know, of spiritualism. But one of the great opportunities he had to do was to help launch modern spiritualism in Japan. And he had a Japanese sort of contingent of people come over to the UK and fact find, and he went back out there and helped launch modern spiritualism. And I say modern spiritualism is in the last couple of 100 years and sort of, you know, Fox Sisters onwards, because actually you go back longer than that and you'll find out there were all sorts of different practical elements of spiritualism. But one of the things my granddad had done, I think it was on a walk around Hyde Park, was he had hugged a tree, right? Because my granddad always loved trees. And Michael Yamamoto, who is now in the spirit world, I always remember him as a kid, because I remember he had like a very posh Japanese British accent. And I can remember getting, Mr. Robinson, you love the trees. And everyone, there's a whole delegation from Japan, everyone going up to the trees and all putting their hands on the trees and hugging the trees. And my granddad was talking about, this tree needs healing. Oh, we must all give the tree, you know, healing. And then he went to another tree. He says, this tree is giving us healing. Oh, we must take the healing. And it became this thing that when they went to Japan, they thought it was a major component part of British spiritualism, and trees and spiritualism, you know, were all sort of part of it. But in a simple way, my granddad would have called himself a lot of things. Others would have called him even worse, but he wouldn't have called himself a philosopher, but he took things in plain English. And I think he was trying to show, without that human barrier of language, about connecting with things, about understanding that everything has a purpose, everything has a being, everything has an element of intelligence to it. And one of the things I'd asked the spirit world about the concept of reincarnation, which I do believe in, it's not necessarily a spiritualist philosopher or even something that SPTV you know, endorsed, but I believe in the concept of reincarnation. And I dedicate a show to karma, because I believe that there can be an element of destiny. And in my plain English, I described it as Blockbuster. So we've got anyone around my age and older, you'll hopefully remember Blockbuster from all over the world. For anyone in their 20s, is what we did when we didn't have Netflix and the internet. You know, go to a store and hire a film. But almost like Blockbuster, you went into this place, and let's call it heaven, and you would have a look through the lives. Which part of the world do I want to live? What's the weather like in England? It's a bit hot over there, or too cold over there. And do I want to go to a nice, rich and wealthy family, or do I want to be born to a poorer family? And when I asked Ralph Steadman when he was alive, he said, look, if you were doing it for the first time, if you'd evolved as rocks and minerals and maybe animals, and you decided you were going to have a human being experience, and you started to understand it from the spirit world, you might go in with like, well, I want a really healthy fetus, I want an easy birth, I want parents that are going to love me and adore me, and I'm going to have servants that work for me. He said, but it might only be at the end of that life when you come back and you judge yourself and you go, all those people that served me, I exploited them. And I now can't progress within this realm and this experience. I need to go back. I'm going to go back and be a servant for someone similar so I can experience what that was like. And then you come back and you realize perhaps you start to build up this karmatic debt. And actually, in order to progress and do more, nothing negative can go, and you keep going back. Other people might do one experience, feel that's enough of that human experience, I'm off to do something different. Other people might do it tens of thousands of times, and actually the soul continues to evolve. And he gave it, and I won't do the full explanation, but he always described it like a board of life, right? And he said, just imagine that all these people in this village are grouped together and said, I'm going to take you all to utopia, to paradise. I know the way, but you must follow me. And in order to follow me, there are a number of rules. And on these rules, I'm going to give you a map from where we are now to where paradise is. But I'm going to take the map away cruelly every single day. And when you start your journey, you're on your own. But You have a walkie-talkie in your bag, and that walkie-talkie comes back to headquarters, and in headquarters is your guide that has the map and can show you the way. And this sort of board of life, paradise was being this continuing evolutionary experience and working towards something greater. And every day, every day on your board game was like a single human being life. And the idea is you leave heaven, you've got a map, you know where you left and where you're going to start again, but you keep joining and rejoining this journey. And along the journey, you always start with a bit of a plan. And sometimes you listen to your guide. You might spend several lives forgetting you even had a walkie-talkie, let alone a guide. But it's all about exploring, and you might not go from start to finish. You might wander, you might see a mountain and think it's quicker, so I'll go up and I'll have a really hard day of climbing, but I'm going to make lots of progress. Equally, you might see a slide, it might be a snake, you might think that slide looks like a lot of fun, and you might retreat, you might wander off sideways. And I always love that idea of blending that sort of game of life with a little bit of karma and a little bit of choice, a little bit about the fact that the human mind has some cruel rules and it wipes all previous experience and knowledge there, but actually it's all about this awakening. And actually the older the soul, perhaps the more likely you are to be awakened, to want to listen to Jiminy Cricket in your sort of consciousness. And I always thought that was amazing. And I love this idea of in this life, I kind of arrived as Ashley Robinson, knowing where I was being born, right, I'm going to achieve all these big things. And when you talk to people like Kate May, who's a big tarot reader down in Portsmouth Ways, lovely lady, her and her husband Colin run Portsmouth Progressive Spiritualist Church. She's an astrologer and she's a tarot card reader. And if you take out the spiritualism, she'll talk about exactly the time and day you were born and why that's important, and how there is this massive element of destiny involved. And actually, whatever you do, you almost can't avoid the total destiny. You can have some different experiences along the way, but there's this straight and narrow piece of elastic cord always bringing you back towards your destiny. And I believe in that to a certain extent too. But I think because we have free will, because we have personal responsibility, and so do the other people in our life. If I'm going to live until I'm 85 years old, but some other lunatic turns up and decides in their own free will they're going to end my life or push me in front of a bus, actually that can interfere with that destiny too. So I've introduced a couple of major things there, but predominantly karma, this idea that there is an ability to reincarnate, and it's a progressive journey, almost like my personality is part of this jigsaw. Ashley Robinson's just one bit of that jigsaw, but I come back and do it different ways, different times for that experience. So Neil, what do you think?
Oh, he just did it, Hels. He just did that thing.
I know, he did it.
You guys, Helen and I, just so you know, everyone at home, we're doing what you guys are doing. We're listening to Ashley speak, right? And it's thrilling. Like, it's really enjoyable. And you get so far into it, like, wow. And then you realise he's just said your name, and you have to say something then.
That's what I was summarising. Karma, concept of reincarnation, destiny. A couple of things you might want to touch on. You don't have to.
Akashic records is a thing I've looked at, actually, just for my own explorative journey. I think a lot of people in my own life, older generation, new people as well, around that I work with, they say these words. They go, "Oh, you're an old soul," and I go, "Am I?" I don't recognize any of it, but they're adamant. They say because of the it's not just my own life experiences here, it's probably from past experiences as well, and bringing that to bear, albeit not quite knowing where if I'm being like an agony aunt online for people, a dear Deirdre, if you like, for surrounding emotional abuse, I haven't had that much of a traumatic life, should we say, to understand that all, but seemingly I do. So my brain tries to make empirical then connections to the experiences, right? So the good example of that surrounding spirituality would be Helen's artwork. When we first met, and she told me she could do this thing, and I said, well, go on then, do us a drawing, and she did, and there's no way. She captured things in that image that resonated deeply with me from my career in the Air Force, and there's things she couldn't have known, and it was too succinct to be a potluck guess, So from that moment, my skeptical self said, oh well, that's pretty real. That's pretty real. And some of Helen's psychic friends have invited us to one or two of their sort of intimate circles that they have, where there's some potentially terrifyingly gifted people there, but but I want to throw my hat in there and go and go and experience it and see what's going on. So karma and karmically balanced. I've always found that an interesting concept, and it is kind of going back to things we were saying earlier. It is you get back what you put out. I believe in that. God, what the one name you said, the tree thing actually was that's interesting. That bizarrely, it was yesterday. I was watching a good old YouTube video about, and I was reminded of this experiment that people did in the 60s and 70s. And it was CIA funded, and they literally experimented whether or not plants have feelings. And it was proven beyond that if you read their findings, you'd read it and go, yeah, trees have feelings, you know, plants have feelings, they have memory, they have understanding, they have emotions. Not like what we, and then part of the society will go, well, that can't be real. It's a tree. It doesn't have complex nerve endings and neuroscience. And well, no, not like we know it. And that's kind of boring to think that, you know, comparing ourselves to anthropomorphic, you know, means that everything should feel and think and understand like we do. But there's these great raft of experiments that suggest that trees and land and the likes, trees are more sentiently higher than a spider plant, so to speak, and they on this channel. Forgive me, I can't remember the name of it. This channel I was watching, and they made a really good argument to suggest that trees are entirely sentient and that they're here as, you know, observers and the like. What else did you say? Because I made notes and I can't read my own writing.
The destiny thing.
Destiny. Is it predestiny or is it destiny? Is it predestiny or destiny? I'd like to think that not knowing is the best way to be anyway. It's all very well looking for inspiration in oracle and tarot and mediumship and things like that, but you know, there's, from what I've seen and understood of that world, it's more about now and looking back, not what's in your future, because there's, you know, if you look at this is probably getting a bit deep, but if you look at like time travel, right, there's a reason you can't go forward in time travel as theorized. You can only go backwards because you can only see what's happened and what's been behind you, and so therefore, as we are living now in these moments, we can use the tools around us of spirituality or self or meditation and the like, look back on our own being, our own lives, and see where we are today. And that can then inform and shape whatever future we want ahead. But I don't believe there's a crystal ball that can do that for you, because we make different choices every single moment. You know, every second you're breathing, every breath you take, your brain is doing probably a billion complex calculations, controlling your vagus nerve, your phrenic nerve, you're controlling my voice to speak, my blinking eyes, my moving my glasses back. You know, a billion different neurons are firing off and giving me those instructions. And it's an interesting time to be alive in, because as I said earlier, that science and spirituality catch up is happening, even in psychology to a degree. Few people. Oh, sorry, I just read a comment. Yeah, what else?
You've answered it really well. And yeah, as a medium, I always say that the future's not yet written. And actually, being in the spirit world, they might have a slightly elevated position. Maybe they can see the bigger picture, but they can't tell the future. And although I think certain things are meant to be, like I think I was meant to meet my wife. I'm lucky enough to have fallen in love with my best friend, but I did go out with two of her friends before I met her. Was I meant to do that? Maybe not. I think I was meant to do it certainly before I married her, as opposed to going out with them afterwards. But there's this idea of if you choose not to do something, that's now the experience. Perhaps that was what was meant to be. You know, children are meant to be, but
you went out with two of her mates beforehand?
Oh yeah, we were very young. I was like 16, 17, you know.
Don't matter. You're still a bit of a slag, to be fair. But yeah.
So one of them might.
Am I allowed to say that, Richard? Sorry.
No, but you know, this thing of did I had to do that to meet her? Well, actually, no. I can't even say that I at least met my wife through them. I actually met my wife at the same time as her friends. But you know, there's this element of destiny at play. and you have to decide if you want to go with the pull of the elastic, or you want to go off the beaten track and do things. You know, if I'm meant to live to 85 because there's things I've got to accomplish, but I take up cliff jumping, I'm increasing the likelihood of an end of experience. So no, I think
it sounds like to me like you had a whole basket of apples to choose from, and you sir, I put it to you that you took a bite out of them all before you settled on the
see what was my favourite. Yeah, I did the same with bourbon and whiskey. I mean, you don't need to sample all of them. you just need to find the one that feels right. Helen, bring us back onto track.
I do feel that what you're saying, just it's what it feels, and following your joy, and definitely think some things, you know, talk about destiny. Well, just try things and you'll feel it. If things are really getting stuck, although, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, just, you know, if it's not working, give up. But then if you really feel not to, like a friend of mine who has a spice business, she sells spices. She had all kinds of and her journey to get to there, you know, different problems of the business, and she's like, no, I'm going to keep going, and now she's got a really successful business. So it's really interesting. It's not, don't give up straight away.
Yeah.
That's funny of just really sort of, if you're really feeling it and know that it's right, it's just finding another road, another path with it.
Debbie's put a couple of comments up there about her children having the gift. And this latest one, you can all see it. Do not believe that from my family history. She wishes she did. Debbie, Helen and I were talking about this the other day. About it doesn't. I was talking to her children. I said they're 8 and 6, and I said, you know, your mum's basically a witch, right? And there was, you know, in a loving way. And they were like, oh, does she make potions? And like, well, yeah, they're called salves, and the food she makes, and the beautiful teas, and all this sort of stuff, and all the good well-being, good living things that we do through Helen. And that's essentially what would have been deemed witchcraft, you know, back in the day. And you've only got to go so far back, Debbie, in timeline of humanity, to see that, you know, that sort of element of society, of spirituality, of understanding, connection to spirit, being able to see dead people, if you like, you know, it wouldn't have been that long ago that it was severely sort of quashed out of society. Because so if you go back to Victorian times, the Victorians will sort of, it was a few hundred years before that, 150 so years before that, but they'll sort of still remember anecdotally witch trials and witch hunts and things like that. So, you know, Winston Churchill,
1950, I think, was the last person to be charged under the fraudulent mediums.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So then when you say your children have got it, because you're embracing it, was it grandchildren? Sorry, forgive me, Debbie, the comments gone, but yeah, but you're embracing it. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. And so that embracing of that element of life and spirituality is, your children are a reflection, or grandchildren, whichever it is, they're a reflection of that. So they're able to grow an intelligence, if you like, within that realm, emotional intelligence surrounding spirituality and the like. Whereas your mum or a parent, their parents and their parents' parents, you only go back, what, 4 generations, and we're in Victorian times, which is when they would then be remembering the witch trials at their heights and things like that. So it was definitely frowned upon. You know, it wasn't that long ago that if you were homosexual, you were put in prison. You know, so spirituality in terms of mediumship or connecting with spirit, or in real terms of just speaking to and channeling those with dead people, if you like, you know, it would have been stamped out, so never nurtured. So where you say is you wish you did, you probably do have. Like, absolutely. if I was to say witchiness, and my definition of it, one of the biggest witches I know is Helen's mum. I know that sounds like a mother-in-law joke, but it's not meant to be that way. She's very, very powerful, isn't she, Hals? You know, but she doesn't even know it. She just chills out.
Yeah, she doesn't know it.
And Helen, congruence with your own nan, right? So your mum's mum, who was a healer, so he was brazen enough to be open about it, even though she passed away, you know, 30 years ago. Whatnot. or whenever. So her parents would have been in that trap of, don't talk about it. So histrionically, I think, if your kids are, there's every chance that you are, you've just.
I think that it's kind spiritual gifts, right? So everyone can work with the spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
Neil, you can draw. I can draw. Helen can draw. Only one of us is talented.
I can draw a bloody good Garfield.
Yeah. So I mean, talent is a big part of using the gifts.
Yeah.
I think that everyone can deliver mediumship. Everyone can pick up on a psychic level. Everyone can draw something. Even if they don't do it with their hands, people can draw with their feet. But there'll be people that are more talented at that, and there'll be people that practice it. There'll be people that are more disciplined, that spend more time on it, and then they can get better.
Yeah. And Debbie, last thing, sorry about Debbie's comment, is that we say your family history suggests that there's that gift is innate in your family lineage. And so there's no reason why it would miss you. You've probably just had very much different life experiences from childhood, unknown or known traumas, conscious or subconscious, things like that. The education system, God, I go on, but all these sort of things, I think really go a long way to sort of stamping those innate abilities out of people that have them. So do some meditation, work with Ashley, work with Helen. That's what I would say, and see where it takes you, because you never know.
Practice all of these things makes sense. Folks, we've got about 15 minutes left of the show. I'm going to do a reading in a moment, so get ready for the question, which will mean that I come to you for the next psychic reading, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about beings, and then we'll finish with a few more readings towards the very end, but probably finish, folks, in the next 15 minutes. So Spiritual Psychics TV has a mission, has an ambition. What is the mission of Spiritual Psychics TV? What does it set out to do? What are the ambitions? What are the intentions? First person to put that on the chat bar that I can see. So that doesn't mean that I'm timing you in first on Facebook or YouTube. Richard and the algorithms will have to produce it on the screen. But the first one I see on the screen will get a next psychic reading.
Well, while everyone's doing that, can I say one thing about intelligence? When we're growing and being taught, and academia and everything else, we're kind of the metrics that are used to measure our intelligence are completely wrong. That's not my personal opinion. There's now defined multiple intelligences. Well worth a Google. Look up the 8 intelligences that exist. It's things like logical and math skills, which obviously a metric that schools test. Then there's naturalistic intelligence, so a good understanding of. So Helen's, naturalistically intelligent, but botany, zoology, biology, appreciation for nature, enjoys being outdoors. Spatial intelligence that pilots, surgeons have got, and like musical intelligence, linguistics. There's a whole raft of them. So just because if someone's out there listening to this, might need to hear it. But if you're out there and you think, I'm not intelligent because I was told I was rubbish at maths, that's all rubbish. It's entirely rubbish. There's 8. Some would argue 12 intelligences. Harvard, they say 8 that they've measured, and Google it and just knock yourself out. Most of us are probably 4 or 5 of the 8 easily. It's just never nurtured in you because it wasn't recognized previously. Anyway, thank you. Sorry.
Don't say sorry. The opportunity is for us to come together. Natalie Bentley's got it. Bringing spiritual people together. Well done.
God, she looks just like the Queen.
Yeah, there's a few Queen lookalikes on social media today. Natalie, I'm going to draw a card for you at the moment. Helen's going to physically draw, and Neil may give you some of his pearls of wisdom. And then we're going to talk about beings. So the card I've got for you, Natalie, is the Beast. Okay, that's the card I've drawn today. And for me, there is something about you having a beast within the cage. Now, this isn't a physical thing. You're not keeping some mythical creature of the night in a cage in a cell or something like that. There's an element of a bit of your personality that you have almost sort of see as a detriment, and you keep this part of you inside. Now, we all have a creature, a beast inside of us. It's our drive. It helps us with fight or flight. For me, I get the beast out to play rugby every Saturday. I get to let that beast out the cage for a couple of hours, play a bit of rugby, put the beast back in, and I get to be my spiritual self. So that again, Richard. I probably wasn't aware of exactly how I was saying. whipping my beast out live on YouTube. No, the beast in the cage, the spiritual beast. Yeah, and the metaphor within. Yeah, I'm blushing. It's the same colour as my shirt. Natalie, this again goes back to something inside you, a character, something that you also describe as a detriment of your character, Natalie. And I want to say that this card in the beast is not a bad thing, okay? Although you've got this sort of crocodile-looking devil with the forked tail, you can almost ignore what the picture of the tail. This is a particular sort of deck. For me, this is about change. This is about changing skin. It's about being authentic. It's about having the opportunity to let the beast out. And I think it's really important because there is an element of you feeling that you can't play to all of your strengths all of your time. And in this sense, there is something you are good at. There's something you like to do a lot. You'd like to do it all the time. It is a proper strength of yours, and it feels like it's been caged. You haven't had the same sort of opportunity to do this, and the beast is rattling at the cage. The beast wants to sort of get out, and the fact that in this card they're not in the cage, that they're not in that sense is really important. It's something to think about. The beast isn't dangerous. The beast wasn't hurting anybody in that card, and in that sense, this isn't something that is dangerous. It's not like you're having to sort of hold on to it and prevent it from doing damage. But there's something about you coming to terms with what you might see as a quality or as a value. The dragon within that beast, it bears the path. We just spoke about destiny. We spoke about that straight and narrow, that elastic, pulling us back onto path. Fearful, we go forwards. And I want to say, keep on keeping on, Natalie. It's really important. The characteristics of the dragon and the beast in that card are also about, and we're going to talk about beings. It's really nice, isn't it? This card, of all the cards I had here, when I talk about other realms, I've always seen dragons as a sort of a protective creature. Dragons being associated with the elements. There's a lovely lady called Ashley Mills that talks about our water dragons, our fire dragons, our wind dragons, about those elements, and about this dragon within this beast leading the way. Follow me. Follow me, Natalie. Keep on keeping on. It's also about facing up to evil. So the beast wasn't in the cage. The beast is out there. The evil is out there. And you've now got this courage, Natalie, to face that evil, to go forwards, to keep going forward. There are powerful dark forces out there, and that's why we need light workers. And I want to say that you are a light worker, Natalie, and you must continue to do your work. There's also someone around you, I think a younger man. I've got bad temper, I've got spiteful side of their nature, and you recognize this part of their personality that you want to close up. So Natalie, that's what I have for you. I'll give Helen a few more seconds to finish doing what she's doing. Neil, any comments, anything that you thought with that card, or anything you want to share for Natalie?
Interesting, eh? That is really interesting. I was just listening to you and then just making my own notes based on what you were saying, kind of thing, in your spiritual interpretation, if you like. So being the wordsmith, the beast is something we can all tame, isn't it, within us? There's some good works on lizard brains and monkey brains and the like, and animalistic sides and things like that. And you could, but I heard that Ashley's breakdown there, and I thought, and I just made some notes of beast, the large, formidable, unstoppable, fearless. And then I was led to write down, maybe it's something that gives you joy as well. Maybe it's something you can follow your joy, and your beast could just as be, an innate ability to dance, and you just haven't done that for a while, or talk, or orate, or lead, or help, or heal. So I would just say follow your joy, because that could be the beast that's waiting to get out of that cage.
Lovely, thanks,
nice one,
Neil.
Natalie.
Natalie said she wants the courage she has needed. Helen.
Oh, well, it totally ties in with everything. There is this amazing beast that's just formed. Energy of it. I feel like when Neil said dance, it was like yes, it was like this vibration from sound to like into your body, just like a real release and letting go. And this, but it felt very healing. This really a beautiful energy coming through with this piece.
Really nice.
Courage.
And Natalie was saying dance, 2 left feet. Thank you.
No, just like yeah, don't.
Yeah.
That's it. Get out your head into your heart and just move. Don't. It doesn't matter
I'm
what
the
you
same,
do.
Natalie. Helen's a very, very accomplished dancer, and she's salsa across the world. And I genuinely, if I start dancing, I look like an epileptic putting up a deck chair. So it's kind of a difficult thing for me to enjoy is dancing. I just can't do it. And courage. I don't mean, I know that you shouldn't do this diametrically because of sexes and you should be more pronoun friendly, they, them, and all that. But courage, from where I stand, and that's with a writing space followed by 50 odd thousand people, most of them are women from all over the world. One of the things I've learned through that and through my work in the military, sending people to war at one point, and to do war-y stuff abroad. The people that won all the medals and really won me over in terms of absolute courage are women, and that's an objective standpoint as well. And nothing will ever courage and all the beastly, stuff, the formidability, the unstoppable, and the fearlessness. You just gotta take that little step and get into it, and you've got the courage. It's hidden within you. Maybe that's the beast you need to release, is your courage.
Natalie, that was your message from Neil, who says he's not spiritual. How lovely was that? Really lovely.
I think I'm.
You said you're not
What?
spiritual.
No,
You're not
I'm just
spiritual.
dealing with the objectivity of it. I can assure you.
But it was a lovely spiritual message.
You're welcome, Natalie. Hope it works.
The show is being spiritual. It was lovely. I think you did. And then she said, "Look, awesome." So people were enjoying that. So beings, we spoke an awful lot about human being experiences. We spoke about reincarnation. We spoke about past life as human beings, recognizing that planet Earth has lots of personalities and consciousness and creatures. We spoke about evolution. We also recognize that even from the limited understanding we have of the universe, planet Earth is but a speck of grain in the three-dimensional world, in the beach that is the universe, versus all the other realms. We just spoke a little bit about dragons, which I talk about as being sort of mythical creatures I see with protection, horses, unicorns, the Pegasus perhaps being a horse with an aura, pictured on an aura. But I wanted to sort of talk the last couple of minutes about thoughts on other beings, anything from fairies and pixies to other things, to life on other planets within our 3D world or other dimensions. So we could go off in any sort of direction. There's a few people coming towards bedtime. We said we'd go to like the 10 o'clock. So we've got the last sort of 5 minutes just to talk a little bit about beings. And if this is something that particularly interests you folks, do head over to the SPTV fan page. Let us know that you'd like us to spend more times on beings and other dimensions. We can do that in the future. But last couple of minutes then, and maybe we're finished with the reading if people want to stay on for that as well. But Neil, beings, being or not to being?
I hate beans. Did you say baked beans?
Beings.
No, disgusting. Not for me. I believe I'm a great component. I believe in the multiverse. I believe that there's things going on within the construct of the multiverse, that there's another me, another you, another Helen, another Terry there commenting, another, the multiverse for me is a thing, because I think that also then explains deja vu, like. I think there's more than enough evidence, more than enough wonder in the world to for my estimation anyway, to prove that there are other beings, and but equally we do kind of get caught up in that, and we think, oh, beings, so was that alien beings, interdimensional beings, light beings, the beings that Helen captures in a wonderful art. Being that sort of empiricism side of my brain, I look around our planet and I think, well, there's enough weird stuff around here to quantify it being you know, an Eden of weird beings, you know, just the platypus, just to name one, you know, there's just how, why, you know, there's enough wonder that's a different being. And just because we've named it and whatnot doesn't mean, you know, trees could be regarded as different beings. We don't know what their reach is and you know what they understand, although science has said that they do understand and feel. I don't know, get me back on another time, and I wouldn't mind talking about beings, but for now I'm kind of, I believe that is a real thing, that there are interesting there's interesting enough interesting evidence to suggest that it's very, very real. I don't particularly have an intuitive, if that's a thing, feeling about it, but I think it's undeniable, you know, that's definitely a thing. Helen's the one for this.
Yeah,
this is Helen's.
Yeah. One of the last drawings for the evening. It'd be nice to see what she's captured.
Well,
please be a Garfield.
It's, you know, interesting. It's one that I've done 7 drawings. Like, whoa.
Wow,
done a lot.
Amazing.
You worked really hard. Thank you.
This was one that I started before we came on it, but and I haven't finished it, but it's quite interesting on the being. It almost feels like a staff, or, you know, it's like holding the energy in its
I
hands.
instantly want to follow though. They say that as a leader, you can't make anyone follow you. Followers choose leaders, and just from that simple sketch, I feel like she's and I want to say she. I'm adding gender when I don't have to, but I want to follow them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They've got some
I agree
wisdom.
with the gender as well. It's very feminine in its
Yeah, no, it is.
shape.
It's interesting. Like the when we were talking about, from, you know, like the Palladians and all the you know, all those sort of star seeds and stuff. And I didn't really know a lot about it till recently, and I was drawn from having a meditation around this, really sensing them and feeling this energy. And they were talking about light coming down into, like, how I had to sort of help. I was part of the sort of, I guess, the star seeds that were coming, and light warriors and workers or whatever that were coming to support. And I just had all these, like, from space and these other planets coming down, and I was like, oh, and it's from that made me recently look into it more, and I really connected to that. It was interesting.
That's one of yours, isn't it?
So,
Can you also...
yeah, it's following what you're. Yeah, that's one of mine. Yeah, that's a coloured one. I've gone to bed, but that's a coloured one. So beings, very interesting, very, like, really noticing what you're drawn to, and it's usually there's a reason behind that. There's communication that wants to come through, and I think when I do these for people, I say to them, they're alive. They will keep talking to you. That if you so wish to work in that way with them, meditate with them, and you know, it's almost like things change within it, especially the more complex ones where there's lots going on. It's like, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't. So, you know, the beings can talk in many different ways, and the picture is alive.
Really nice. And, you know, lots of stuff there, folks. So we could talk about any of these subjects in more detail. We'd love to get your feedback on the SBTV fan page or in the YouTube or Facebook comments tonight. We will finish in one final quick reading in a moment. Julie Kaz was just saying in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book, The Coming of the Fairies, he was looking at the viewpoint that we may have a limited sight and hearing, and it could be on a different vibration. Yeah. You know, we often talk about energy, don't we? Well, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, things we can't see without a device. Yeah, very true, Julie. Lots of people. Angie White saying thank you. You're all wonderful, folks. We hope you've had a good show tonight. I'm going to think of one final question to ask. In fact, I'll ask Helen. Helen, you can ask the good people of SPTV World today. Ask them a question, and then the first person to answer can have a final reading of the day.
So this crystal, can you see it?
Yeah.
The first person to name, is that really too hard? Can anyone identify this crystal?
Go back slightly on the camera.
There.
Richard's actually got a Christian name for them, yeah.
Oh.
So what type of crystal?
Okay.
Is that right?
It's in the colours. Can you see, what do the colours look like? Kind of yellowy. Okay. It's an all-round healer. This one.
Helen's only since we've been together, introduced me to crystals while you're all thinking of its name.
I think I know the answer. I'm not going to shout out. I'm going to wait until you say that's the right one.
Oh, yeah.
So Neil, can you see the answers? Helen, does it begin with a Q?
No, I can't see them.
Does it begin with a Q?
No.
It's
Shall
not
I tell
quartz.
No, wait.
Well, actually, it's no, but it is quartzy. But it's infused quartz with something else.
No.
I can't ever remember the term. But it's got a special name that's called.
Smoky quartz. Someone has said here. Karen.
No.
Smoky quartz.
It begins with G. Begins with G.
Begins with a G.
Gareth.
So someone said no. So someone with a G. G for golf. Yeah. G.
Yeah. G for golf.
Citrine quartz. Someone has said.
Oh, it's similar. Yeah, it does look a bit like citrine, but it's not.
That's very close. That is Catley. It's really close. It does look citrine.
So looking for a name that begins with G for golf.
Amber Heard.
Okay, shall I give you what should I say? Something else?
Give another clue.
Okay, so
Gorgeous quartz. That's good. Okay.
Gorgeous quartz. Okay, so shall I say the last? There's two. I feel like I'm doing Pictionary now. Two words.
Gary, garnet.
Oh no, garnet, no. So
Please
the first. What shall I?
my misery.
Let me give you the first or the last part of the name. It's two words. First word or last word?
Do the first part. Go on.
Golden.
Golden.
Something.
Golden something.
Yeah.
Golden something for the last reading of the evening.
Just so you all know. Just so you all know, my question was going to be, where do babies come from? So mine would have been far easier than that. Blooming crystal.
Sorry, that was I was too cryptic.
Golden tiger.
Golden healer.
Is that
Has
what
anyone
it's called?
heard
Golden
of that?
healer.
Yeah, it's a beautiful stone.
Okay, so we didn't have any winners come with that, so we're going to go to the backup question. It's a beautiful question. So
where do babies come from?
Where do babies come through? And we want the cleanest but funniest answer.
No, not through.
No, where they come through. Where they come from?
Not through. Be inundated.
Where do babies come from? From.
The most innovative answer. The best answer you could put down.
The best answer.
Just a couple of words.
And Neil will choose the winner, and I'll draw a card for you, and we'll finish for the evening. Before it's 10 o'clock, it gets blue, doesn't it?
Yeah. Come on, people. Where do
babies come from?
Funniest answer, quickest answer. Stalks.
I like that.
Helen likes that because it's spelt the way she would spell it, but I know you meant stalks.
Thank you.
Like birds. Yeah.
So Karen.
Karen. Yeah,
Karen,
I like that.
name Karen with the K. This card is for you, and it is the wheel.
Ooh.
The wheel of life, I want to say. This is a water wheel in this car, and it is a water mill that is up to something, but you can only see a little of what it's doing. For the untrained eye, it is a bit of wood attached to a wall, and it is very close to the river. When the river is high enough, or when the wheel is low enough, so there's two different conditions, the water may turn this wheel, and then behind that it may turn another cog. And Karen, I want to say that at the moment there's an awful lot of mechanics and cogs in your life, all turning the big wheel. There's an awful lot going on with you at the moment, Karen. And I also want to see that not everyone understands that, because there's only so much that you're telegraphing and telling them. To a certain extent, there are some people saying, hey, Karen, the wheel's not turning, and they're only seeing the fact that the wheel is not in the water and it's not turning. They don't realize that there's a drought. There hasn't been enough rain. There's not enough water to power the wheel. Other people can't see that you've brought the wheel out of the water. It's not that the wheel is not in the water, you have raised it out. And there's an element of this, is an element of what you're able to divert your energy to, of what you're able to do. And I want to say that resilience has been a part of this, because you're still functioning, Karen. You're still turning, and because you're turning, the other cogs are turning. It's all powering the big machine. I want to say you're juggling lots of competing priorities. I would say that there's a big family work-life balance involved in that, but family at the moment have been draining you, and you've been prioritizing that because it's been important, but you're spinning all these plates, you're balancing all these competing priorities. The wheel is still turning, but you need a top up. There's been some resilience tests and some challenging times for you, but keep on turning. You've got this. You're much stronger than you feel. The cogs, the wheels, they're all moving. They need a bit of WD-40. You've got some WD-40 coming from the spirit world. That's plain English. I don't think it's going to materialize. It'd be wonderful if it did. What great physical phenomenon would that be? A tin of WD-40. This is love. This is light. This is this top up of resilience for you. And there's this real thing about emotional intelligence, Karen. And I'm being told that your emotional intelligence makes you a high performing wheel in this mill. Karen at the mill. Keep on turning. Neil, anything you'd like to say?
Wow, yeah, I suppose. I see water as emotions, generally. So it's a thing that's continually turning. So is that your emotions? Is that emotions being churned up through the water? Do you need to get off the wheel? There's a couple of options. So you could either face them down using the emotional intelligence alluded to by Ashley, accept it, and then work with it, work with that energy, if you like, or work with those emotions. And I suppose once that's done, then you could probably then look at getting off the wheel and then going with the flow. So I got a slightly different interpretation, but then that's my weird right side brain is that it is like spinning plates. So actually, like, so just continue going around, and with the emotional context of the water, going around this emotional turmoil, perhaps. And there's some things in there for you. Perhaps there's some things you can just, oh, hang on, spot on. My son suffers with his mental health. It's been really hard recently. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, especially with mental health as well, you've all got to face them. If your family is your son, you've all got to face it as a family unit. And that would sort of play into that emotional turmoil, I guess. There's a lot goes on there with mental health stuff. It'd be interesting to know how old your son is. My domain is pretty much mental health. So if there's anything I can do, just look me up on the old Quora, Google Nellie Bryan, and then I'll come up and time to reach out if there's anything that can help with. But once all that's faced, you can perhaps go with the flow. That'd be my interpretation of that card. It's a lovely card though, the wheel. Reminds me of the Wheel of Fortune as well. It's like a nice, and it can go either way, I suppose.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. That was really lovely.
Yeah, hope it helps, Karen.
Helen.
Helen.
Interesting. So, can you get that in?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Oh, wow.
Like getting all these different connections to cogs or things happening. Wow. Yeah, and they've got this like mountain goat, so it's like this resilience, this strength that you're having to, which is very much linked to the heart up here. And then it sort of wiggles out like the lifeline, like the heart, and on the monitors, it reminds me of that, to this being here, and then down to this, that it sort of kept changing actually. It's very interesting, and beautiful, but definitely kind of like the strength and resilience of your heart that you're needing. This little mountain goat here, and it's something that they climb up. It's like you've got to get up to the ledge where you can sort of see everything, get a better view. It's like actually just come out of all the stuff that's happening and just get clearer.
Lovely. I like that. It's almost like its own card.
Can I overstep, Helen? Yeah. Can you, Karen, if you reach out for Karen, if you're still there, if you reach out to Helen, then the details will probably be SPTV or somewhere, or just go for Sacred Offering Art. Can we send that one? Can we send that one to Karen? Because I think it'd support her. Like she's, supporting her son with his mental health issues. That if that helps you, resonates with you, we could easily send that to you in the post, and you can stick it on your wall.
She was just saying her son, 28, suffers with psychosis.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. My son's 28 as well. That's a tough deal, Karen.
Yeah. That's
sorry,
really
Neil
tough.
was tearing up. How do I contact you? So you.
Good.
Oh no, you're allowed to tear up. That's processing, dude. Totally. Reach out. If you go on Quora, or just go on the Google machine and just Google Narsole the Lonely Monster.
Are you on the SPTV directory, Neil?
I don't know what that is, so probably not.
Let's get you on the directory later, so people can.
Okay.
The SPTV UK have a directory of different people and different services. It's a free directory, folks. You can add yourself to that. But at the very least, We'll post some links in the SBTV fan page, but SBTV directory is a good place to find people. I'll also share these images at Ash Robinson Medium and the fan page. And then, Neil, you can give me some other contacts and I can post that as well.
Yeah, no worries. Cool.
Good,
yeah,
wonderful.
thanks, Karen.
Lovely message to finish on. I think that, Karen, you needed that, and thank you for your feedback. But you got a lovely drawing from Helen. You got great reading from Neil, and hopefully I added some value too. Folks, I can't believe it. It's the longest show we've ever done. We got special permission to go for 2 hours today. We've gone for 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's been wonderful. Thank you for those of you that have been here from start to finish. I know a few of you have had to go off to bed, and will no doubt be watching this on playback. Do share this video, folks, afterwards. After it's finished, share it on YouTube, share it on Facebook, share it with your friends. And if you want us to come back and do some of these subjects again, we will. I would love the opportunity to work again with Helen and Neil. I've had a fantastic show. I've really enjoyed it this evening. The 2 hours has flown by. Julie Caswell says it's been fantastic evening too. We've been grateful for our producer Richard that has stayed with us, kept us going, feeding in all of our comments, doing a wonderful job. But folks, I will let you go off and get some sleep. If you're in the UK, it's probably approaching bedtime, although my son no doubt is still awake and will probably disagree. Best wishes from me. Good night. Over to Helen and Neil.
Thank you, everybody. That's been super. Sorry, go ahead, Hel.
No, the same. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm usually in bed by now too, so I'm definitely going to be in bed soon.
Cheers. I'm going to have a glass of wine before I go to bed, which is the way I roll. But thanks, everybody. Thanks for your support, and thanks for having me on. It's been great. Cheers.
Good night,
everybody.
Wishes. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.